So I want you to imagine a world where something as fundamentally wild and unpredictable as the weather is just, well, completely rigidly controlled.
Right, like an entirely engineered system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine living in a city where you don't check a forecast to see if it might rain. You check a schedule to see exactly when the precipitation has been, programmed to fall.
Oh.
It's like this invisible planet-wide sprinkler system. You never carry an umbrella just in case, because, well, just in case no longer exists.
Yeah, that concept is just gone.
Right.
Right.
So put yourself in that perfectly sanitized, flawlessly engineered reality, and imagine what it would feel like if a storm just suddenly broke out. Unplanned. Unscheduled.
It would be chaos. I mean, total cognitive dissonance.
Totally. What does that mean for the people living underneath it? Does it mean the system they rely on is dangerously broken? Or, does it mean the world they live in is finally waking up?
It's an incredibly disorienting thought. For anyone who relies on absolute order, an unscheduled drop of rain is a terrifying glitch.
Oh, for sure.
But for anyone who feels suffocated by that same order, that single drop of rain is like the most liberating thing they could possibly witness.
And that tension, right? That tension between an engineered, frictionless peace and the messy, unpredictable reality of being human, that is exactly what we're exploring today. Welcome to today's deep dive.
We are digging into some really fascinating source materials today.
We really are. We've got excerpts from Chapter 3 of a compelling narrative called The Velvet After, Resistance Between the Cracks.
Yes, setting us right in the year 2148.
Our mission today is to look through the eyes of two protagonists, Ayers, that's pronounced Iris, and Ivy. We're going to explore how they navigate a society that has seemingly decided the only way to cure human suffering is to systematically cure human emotion.
Which is such a heavy concept. And while this text uses, a futuristic sci-fi setting, the core of what we're analyzing is profoundly philosophical.
Yeah, absolutely.
By projecting us to 2148, the narrative is holding up a mirror to our current modern relationship with pain, convenience, and authenticity. It forces us to ask what the actual baseline of humanity is supposed to look like.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text throws us right into this tension with a single jarring event.
Right at the start.
Yeah, the very first entry we have from Ayers records is dated September 30th, 2148. And it starts with a line that sets the entire baseline for the world they're living in before the main conflict even fully rears its head.
And that line is just, rain happened, it wasn't scheduled.
It wasn't scheduled. It's such a powerful opener.
What's fascinating here is the language Ayers uses to describe this event. It's so deliberate.
Oh, yeah.
The text notes, drops fell like tiny secrets, not loud, just enough to remind you that the sky thinks too.
The sky thinks too. Wow.
Right. The unscheduled rain is acting as a sensory shock to the system. It represents the untamable natural world creeping back into a hyper-controlled society. The idea of the sky thinking is this realization that nature, and by extension human nature, just cannot be entirely programmed.
It's autonomy returning to a sterile environment.
Yeah.
And while this profound disruption is happening outside the window, the scene inside the apartment gives us, everything we need to know about our protagonists.
Yeah, they're just watching this rain.
Right, Ayers is watching it with Ivy.
Yeah.
And the physical description of Ivy here is incredibly vivid. She's wearing Ayers' oversized striped shirt, and she's holding a coffee mug that simply says, no, just the word no in capital letters.
It's such a great detail.
I know, it's brilliant. It's a tiny, mundane object, but it perfectly encapsulates her defiant personality before we even know what she's defying.
Exactly. That mug acts as a physical manifestation of her internal state, because she is existing in what the text refers to as the underneath.
The underneath.
Yeah. When she watches the rain, she says, everything is a little slower now. And Ayers just responds, it's because we've already changed.
They don't even need to fully explain it to each other.
No, they don't, because the underneath isn't a physical basement or a bunker. It's a deliberate psychological downshifting. They've mentally stepped out of the dominant, hyper-efficient paradigm of their society.
Which, ask yourself, think about moments in your own life when an unplanned disruption actually felt like a breath of fresh air amidst a rigid routine.
Oh, definitely. Like a sudden snow day or a power outage.
Exactly. Think about how hard it is for you right now to just put your phone in another room and sit completely still for an hour.
Well, it's almost impossible for most people.
Right. We're heavily conditioned to optimize every single second of our day. Stepping into a slower rhythm, deliberately choosing not to participate in that endless optimization, It feels almost unnatural to us.
Yeah, it does.
But for Ivy and Ayers, stepping into that underneath isn't a vacation. It's a vital survival tactic.
Because the environment around them is standardizing at a terrifying rate. If we move to the next set of dates in the narrative, around October 2nd, the atmosphere of their town shifts.
It gets really eerie.
Very. The text notes that the streets are getting quieter, people are walking less and talking less.
Yeah, because there's a new societal upgrade rolling out known simply as the Velvet Program.
Right. And the whispers in town say that Velvet, quote, heals, and that it knows better.
But Ivy immediately rejects it. She and Ayers make a pact right then and there. No Velvet. Ayers even tells her, "You've never needed fixing."
Which is such a tender moment.
It is, but the threat becomes impossible to ignore when we see what Velvet actually does to people.
Mhm.
On October 4th, their close friends, Izzy and Drew, go through the program. They get velveted.
And the post-program transformation is deeply unsettling precisely because it isn't violent. Izzy and Drew aren't battered or bruised.
No, they're just changed.
Exactly. The text describes them as blinking slowly, talking like smooth robots with cute little pauses. They smile much too easily. But the most evocative detail Ayers provides is that Drew's eyes were, quote, soul-wise gone.
Soul-wise gone. They've been completely hollowed out. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And I have to offer some genuine pushback here.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I think there's a real debate to be had. I get the creepy, smooth robot aesthetic the author is painting, but listen to what the velveted characters actually say.
Right, the dialogue.
Yeah. Drew tells Ivy, "I love you, but it's like forever now." And Izzy chimes in with, "Forever isn't heavy anymore."
Mm-hmm.
If we strip away the sci-fi horror framing for a second, isn't a world without heavy burdens or paralyzing fear actually a good thing? Who wouldn't want to live without carrying the weight of past traumas or the sheer exhaustion of existential dread?
It sounds pretty appealing when you put it like that.
Right. If a program promises absolute peace and lightness, why do Ivy and Ayers resist a program that promises peace?
Well, it is the ultimate temptation, and it's exactly why Velvet is so insidious. On paper, it sounds like a perfect utopia, the complete eradication of psychological pain.
Yeah, sign me up.
But Velvet doesn't achieve this by helping you process your trauma or navigate your anxiety. It functions more like a sensory deprivation tank.
Oh, interesting.
It doesn't solve your problems. It solves them by severing the emotional nerves that allow you to feel the problem in the first place. You no longer feel the crushing weight of despair, but you also lose the capacity to feel anything profoundly.
But is that kind of sedation always a bad thing? I mean, think about how we try to curate our own lives right now, today.
We do it constantly.
We do.
Yeah.
We use algorithms to filter out content that upsets us. We actively seek out digital echo chambers that only validate our existing opinions just so we don't have to feel the friction of disagreements.
Yeah, that's very true.
We buy apps to meditate our stress away. We are constantly trying to velvet ourselves. If the end result is a peaceful, undisturbed life, why does the text frame it as a tragedy?
Because a life without friction is a life without traction. You cannot move forward, you cannot connect deeply without some form of resistance. The tragedy is that the Velvet program flattens the entire emotional curve.
I see what you mean.
If you aggressively smooth out the deep valleys of human suffering, you inevitably bulldoze the soaring peaks of joy, passion, and love. That concept of forever isn't heavy anymore implies that their relationships no longer carry any meaningful weight. It's a flat line.
Just totally numb.
Right. Peace in the Velvet program is just the absence of feeling entirely.
So it's not a cure, it's an erasure.
Yeah.
Which brings a completely different context to a conversation Ivy and Ayers have later that same night.
Yes, this is a crucial moment.
Ivy holds Ayers tighter than ever, and she whispers something that just completely stopped me in my tracks. She says, "I don't want to forget my fears, because my fears are what taught me to find you."
It fundamentally reframes the purpose of pain. Velvet treats fear and anxiety as bugs in the human operating system, right? Glitches to be patched out so the machine runs smoother. But Ivy recognizes that her vulnerability is the exact mechanism that allowed her to connect deeply with another person. Her fear wasn't just useless suffering, it was a compass.
A compass. I love that.
It directed her toward the safety and the profound love she found with Ayers.
So once Ivy and Ayers realize that the system equates peace with emotional erasure, they can't just sit quietly in their apartment holding a no mug.
No, they have to act.
They are forced to find an environment that reflects their internal defiance. Because velvet represents the erasure of passion, they need a physical space that matches their psychological resistance, a place that is proudly imperfect.
Exactly. They seek out an unvelveted zone, a place that the hyper-efficient society has neglected or deemed obsolete.
Which brings us to October 6th.
Right. On October 6th, the text details their visit to an old movie theater. And the sensory details here serve as a stark contrast to the Velvet program.
The theater is dusty, it's warm. The text specifically highlights broken, glitching reels.
Such a great image.
And Ayers notes that this forgotten space is for people who still dream, specifically the kind of people who dream in messy, bleeding colors and who actively question if they're real.
Now compare that environment to Izzy and Drew. The velveted friends were smooth with cute little pauses. They were sterile and immaculate.
Almost too perfect.
Right. But the unvelveted theater is dusty, glitching, messy, and bleeding. It is a deeply tactile environment. The dust and the glitches are evidence of decay, yes, but they are also absolute proof of life.
You know, it reminds me so much of the modern resurgence of vinyl records or physical film cameras.
That's a perfect comparison.
Because right now we have flawlessly crisp digital audio streaming. We have 4K cameras in our pockets that automatically correct our lighting and stabilize our shaky hand.
I can engineer the perfect image in seconds.
Exactly. Yet we are overwhelmingly drawn back to the pop and hiss of a vinyl record, or the unpredictable light leaks and grain of a physical Polaroid camera. We actively seek out the glitching reels because perfection is sterile. The flaws are what make things feel alive.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about craving the artifact of the human hand. A flawless digital photo gives you an image, but a Polaroid proves a physical process actually happened in the real world.
Yeah, the process matters.
The unpredictability isn't a failure of the medium, it's the entire point. In a world moving towards sterile perfection, leaning into the flaws is an assertion of humanity.
But let me challenge that instinct for a moment. Doesn't fetishizing the dust and the glitches become its own kind of trap?
How do you mean?
Well, are Ivy and Ayers just hiding in a decaying building, clinging to the past because they can't handle the reality of the future? Is this theater just another form of escapism, no different than the Velvet program itself?
I think it would be a trap if they were just sitting in the dust, wallowing in nostalgia. But they aren't using the theater to escape, they are using it to create.
Oh, that's a great distinction.
We see this through the most profound act of resistance in the entire narrative. In the middle of this messy, glitching theater, Ivy performs a silent dance.
Yeah, she dances barefoot, with no music, just her breathing and her bare feet tapping on the floor, her, quote, green hair a storm.
And Ayers films it on an iRecorder, calling the moment sacred. It redefines what a rebellion looks like.
Usually it's lasers and explosions.
Exactly. In these futuristic narratives, resistance usually means blowing up a facility or engaging in a massive, violent war against the system.
Right.
But here, the resistance is an intimate, silent dance in a forgotten room. It's the deliberate choice to feel the hard floor under bare feet. It's the quiet act of making art and refusing to let go of human friction.
And after the dance, Ivy sits in Ayers' lap and whispers, "If I disappear again, find me in the cracks."
She knows that the dominant culture, the smooth, velveted world, is essentially a massive paving machine.
That's exactly what it is.
It is going to try to pave over all of the messy, unpredictable elements of society.
And they realize they cannot fight the paving machine head on.
No.
They don't have the power to stop the Velvet program from rolling out.
So what do? Their strategy is to exist in the fissures. They have to become the weeds growing stubbornly through the concrete. The cracks are the only places left where something unprogrammed and unscheduled can still grow.
Find me in the cracks. And Ayers promises I'll read between every line. It's an incredibly intimate promise.
It really is.
And it all builds up to a climax a few days later, on October 9th. The encounter Drew again. And Drew, who is completely hollowed out by this point, keeps repeating the corporate party line. He says, "Velvet is peace. It's okay to not want anything else."
And Ivy's response to Drew serves as the ultimate thesis statement for the unvelveted human.
It's so good.
She looks at him and says, "I don't want peace if it forgets passion. I don't want peace if it means forgetting you."
They walk away from him, and that same night, they decide to leave a permanent mark on the world. They physically carve their names into the wall of the old unzoned theater.
Yes.
The carving says Ivy and Ayers, not programs, not plans, just people who bled light.
People who bled light. It's a stunning phrase that perfectly encapsulates everything they are fighting for.
It really is.
To bleed implies vulnerability. It implies the capacity to be injured, to feel pain. But what they are bleeding isn't just suffering, they are bleeding light,
Vitality.
energy, passion. It reinforces the core idea that you cannot separate the vulnerability from the vitality. To be a program is to be perfectly safe, but entirely dead. To be a person is to be at constant risk, but radiant.
Radiant.
Right.
And that risk finally manifests. Which brings us to the very last entry we have in our source material, dated October 11th, 2148. Just a few days after they carve their names, the atmosphere of the world shifts again.
The text describes a shimmer in the air.
Yeah, Ivy gets quiet. Ayers asks what it is, and Ivy simply says, I think it's time. Ayers asks, time for what? And Ivy replies, for the undoing of whatever tried to cage us.
The narrative deliberately cuts off right there, leaving us on a precipice. We don't get the satisfaction of knowing what this undoing actually looks like.
Right, it's totally open-ended.
It might be a total collapse of the Velvet program, it might be a sudden societal awakening, or it might just be Ivy and Ayers fully stepping into their power as anomalies and escaping the city entirely.
We just don't know.
But that shimmer in the air brings us full circle. It mirrors the unscheduled rain from the very first entry. The atmosphere is fracturing. The rigidly controlled environment is finally breaking down.
So what does this all mean? When you look at all these pieces together, the terrifying smoothness of the velveted citizens, the stubborn defiance of a glitching theater, the realization that fear can be a compass, it forces a massive reevaluation of our own modern goals.
It really does.
We spend so much energy, time, and money trying to optimize our lives.
Well,
We constantly try to life hack away our frustrations, our discomforts, and our sadness.
we treat friction as an obstacle that needs to be permanently removed, rather than understanding that the friction is the path itself.
Exactly.
The creators of the Velvet program sought to cure humanity of its messiness, completely failing to realize that the messiness is the humanity. If we succeed in our own efforts to make everything in our lives perfectly smooth and frictionless, we might just find ourselves blinking slowly, totally hollowed out with our eyes soul-wise gone.
Which leaves us with a hypothetical for you to take with you today, something to mull over as you navigate your own messy, unpredictable life.
A parting thought.
Yeah. Imagine if a real-world Velvet app dropped tomorrow. A simple, permanent biological update that you could download in an instant. It promises to completely and permanently erase your deepest anxieties, your lingering past traumas, and your heaviest emotional burdens.
Which sounds incredibly tempting.
Very tempting. But the user agreement explicitly states the cost. By removing those deep valleys of pain and fear, the update will also permanently smooth out the wild, intense peaks of joy, the profound depths of love, and the fierce passions that were born from overcoming those very struggles.
That's the trade-off.
So the question is, do you hit download, take the cure, and embrace the painless forever? Or do you delete the app, embrace the unscheduled rain, and decide to stay in the cracks?
That is a lot to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, embrace the mess and keep looking for the light in the cracks.